Your final project for this class is a watercolor painting. It's going to be done on 11 by 15. You can do it, of course, landscape or portrait, doesn't matter. But your goal is to come up with a really nice composition. Now, this is your last painting, and so think of it as the culmination of everything you've learned during the class. And so we're not going to try to rush through it. We're going to try to come up with a really nice composition, paint it as well as you can, and have something that you would like to keep. Now, I'm going to show you some examples of different work, and I'm doing it mainly because these are things that I like, or I think they might have value to you. But think about the composition, because very few of us can paint like this. This is Don Weller, who is a local artist. He's the one who created the logo for Park City, has worked in this area for years, also worked in LA, worked on Beatle albums of all things. But he's a very, very good draftsman and a great painter. What I like about this is the composition. Now, most people would want to draw or paint the entire horse or a good portion of it. This one's called Rangeland Office Chair. So he's basically just painting the saddle. And he could have put it across a rail and painted it that way, but he chose to paint it on the horse, but eliminate most of the horse. So I really love the composition of this piece. Another Don Weller, Magpie on a fence rail. Look at how simple this is. This is simply a fence. Look how he treated the foliage in the background. Just some spots, some big, bold areas of color. The things that he zeroed in on for detail are the fence posts, the barbed wire, and the magpie. A very common scene that you see in our area is hollyhocks. This artist, a lot of moisture down here to spread the background color, and then she painted on top of it, possibly while it was still pretty wet in some places. Very iconic image for Utah, Delicate Arch down at Arches National Park. I've got two examples of watercolors. This one's kind of interesting. It's very bright, very deep reds, using blues for the shadows and such. Another watercolor artist, her depiction of it, very nicely painted. Double Arch, another very iconic Utah scene from Arches National Park. I like the interplay of the blues in the windows against the red sandstone. I want you to think about how detailed you think things have to be. This artist makes big, broad strokes of color and just kind of puts little lines and shadows in to depict them. She's not painstakingly trying to make it look like a photograph, and I like that about her work. This is a piece that I did. Usually when you think of Stonehenge, you think of the long expanse with all the monolithic images there. I chose just to zero in on one small part and do that painting. And I call it Morris and Tendon because that's what they were doing, is they were putting these joints on so that they would come together. This is a Utah artist, and I picked just a couple of his pieces to show that sometimes a detail is more interesting than the entire object. Here's the front of a locomotive. There's the back of a train car, and not even the entire back, just a section of it. And here's the wheels. And so sometimes it's a lot more interesting to just show a detail than to paint the entire object. And then this is just a very simple little landscape. I want you to see that as it progressively gets further away, the mountains get lighter and grayer. So painting class, this is your last project. And I started off with this painting here. I really like this painting. One of the things I like about it is its composition. Look at the balance. This part of the arch is right in the middle, but the other part of the arch is off to your right. And then you can see the sandstone climbing up on this side, and so that balances it off. But it's a really nice asymmetrical balance. Now, let me come over to this painting. Now, one of the reasons I have this up is because I did this painting on the exact same size paper that you're going to use. This is 11 by 15. Now, you can do it landscape like I did, or you can turn it portrait shape, depending on what your subject matter is. So, what is your goal? Your goal is to come up with something that's really nice. This is the end of your class. This should be one of your nicest pieces. And so what I want you to think about is all the lectures on elements of design, things like balance, focal point, movement, scale, contrast, rhythm, all these things that can be added into your composition to strengthen it. The other thing is, make sure that you don't use your paints too heavy. So I'm really disheartened sometimes when I see works come in and the paint is so thick that it's become opaque. Do you remember when you were in first and second grade and you'd used the tempera paints? Well, those were opaque. I don't want this to look like that. I want your watercolors to have life and light to them. And that happens by letting the paper show through and show that sparkle, that brilliance. And so think of all the different techniques that you practice. Think of how you can utilize those techniques to make a really nice composition. And be sure that you make sketches, you show me an attachment so I can give you hints and help, and kind of guide you away from mistakes. And you can do it by attachments on the emails, or you can show it to me during our office hours at our conferences, okay? Now, the goal is to have a piece that is so nice that you'll want to mat it. This is a mat that goes around, and it's also on the bottom, continues at the top. And so it's been matted, now it's ready to frame. It would be wonderful if your work was something that was nice enough that you want to mat it, frame it, and keep it in your personal collection. That's your goal.